Padma Rao, who is reporting for us from Sri Lanka as well. Ms. Rao, how do you see the situation now panning out? Because the protest that we saw on the ground for the last 3 months in Sri Lanka was not just against Gotabaya Rajapaksa, but also Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was Gotabaya's appointee for the post of Prime Minister.
You're absolutely right. Even though Ranil Wickremesinghe has won by a relatively large margin, 134 votes, I'm given to understand, the unrests on the street, which are subdued at the moment because of the emergency being in place, are not likely to be, people are going to get restless, and it remains really to be seen whether Mr. Wickremesinghe comes out and addresses, the members of the Aragalaya, to whom he says, his team says that they have been, trying to reach out to and talk to, but I don't think that's going to help given the level of anger on the streets at the moment. So what we might see is some sort of an announcement. And I think this is one of the things that Anura Dissanayake, one of the candidates who also ran for president, one of the 3 candidates, had said yesterday that he said one thing that is missing is whether it's Ranil Wickremesinghe or whether it's Dullus who wins the presidential vote, what people would like is at least a time frame, as to how long this new interim administration is going to remain in place and when the elections are going to be held. So I think tempers may be calmed down if Mr. Wickremesinghe, President Wickremesinghe now comes out and actually sets a time frame and says, okay, I'm going to remain here for the next 3 months, let's say, and after that there will be announces a date for fresh elections, because I think that is what people want. They want greater participation beyond the parliamentary vote which was held today to elect the president.
But ma'am, that did not happen when Wickremesinghe became prime minister again. I mean, the kind of confidence building with the Janta, with the people there of Sri Lanka, that did not actually turn out as a reflection of confidence there. Now with Wickremesinghe as the president of Sri Lanka, will it tip Sri Lanka back to chaos? What is your reading into it?
Chaos can only happen if there is a leeway for chaos, if there is no army troops on the streets, if there is no emergency in place, no curfew in place. Having said that, it's not a very healthy state of affairs to keep an emergency or a curfew in place and suppress the people artificially. Mr. Wickremesinghe is a very seasoned politician. He knows that extremely well. So what I do expect is for him to set a date for fresh elections, hoping to mollify the crowd, and to say that, let's say, because ordinarily, he would continue till 2024, which is when the next presidential election is due. But that is unlikely under the present situation. People are restless. People want a voice in choosing a new president themselves. So I think what is going to happen is that he will he's going to explain his present position as being in place to carry on the negotiations with the IMF, get some sort of a breathing space for Sri Lanka, get some sort of a respite for Sri Lanka, for the economic crisis. Remember, that is at the key of all issues. I mean, that's bigger than everything else is the economic crisis. So I think we're likely to see some sort of an announcement along those lines from him that he will, first put some sort of order or bring some sort of respite to the country, and that he will announce a date for fresh elections. I pretty much see this as coming as possibly one of the only solutions to calming down the country. It remains to be seen when he makes that announcement, and if he naturally, I'm not
in Parliament in a short while from now, Siddharth.
Yes. And Padma Rao, of course, we've seen how the situation is now panned out in Sri Lanka. There's also serious questions about the legitimacy that somebody like a Ranil Wickremesinghe enjoys. He's himself said that it's going to take at least 4 years now for the Sri Lankan economy to stabilize. Now, India's position always has been that the constitutional process needs to be upheld in Sri Lanka, at least by taking the proceedings at face value as to what panned out in Parliament. That appears to be the case. But do the protesters actually see that way, Padma Rao?
Look, so far, if you're talking about a constitutional process, the constitutional process has been adhered to. I mean, the president is entitled to naming a prime minister who is in parliament, right? That is how Ranil Wickremesinghe got named as prime minister, even though he had only one nominated seat in parliament. So that was not strictly speaking, not unconstitutional. Now again, the vote that has been held today in Parliament, the President's resignation and Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe taking over as acting President was also in keeping with a certain clause. I think it was Article 40 of the Constitution. So again, that was constitutional. What happened today is again constitutional. It's a vote that was taken with the agreement of everybody present in Parliament, and whoever is present in Parliament is, after all, a people's representative. Now, you may argue that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe was not elected.
I'm told that Priyank is with us right now, joining us live from Colombo. He's been looking at all the proceedings live, what's happening there in the Parliament. Priyank, we are expecting that Ranil Wickremesinghe